All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for showing up. This is the Workshop Wednesday, and basically it's just an open Q&A for an hour. If we filter out before then, that's fine. If we go a little bit longer, that's fine too. Anyone can bounce off anytime they want. But basically, this is just an open Q&A to get your questions answered about the program. So, okay, we got a question. How does someone on our team submit an intake form? Okay, so it depends on if you're talking about the TC doing the intake form or if you want an outside agent to do the intake form and submit. So if you want the inside TC to do the form, you can just come over here to add property, and this is going to be on your dashboard on the left side. If it's not open, you might have to hit this little button here to open this up. Or you could hit the property screen. It's also in the property. You could also hit up here at new, and it's also intake form right here. So you got a couple of choices on how you start this. Okay, so once you hit the intake form, you're going to be able to choose from the list of intake forms that you have available to you. So I just have a bunch of demo forms in here. You would just hit the process and you would go ahead and get started. Now, obviously, you have to have an intake form in there. You would go to the hammer icon, templates, and you can create your own intake form. Last week, we spent some time going through an intake form and showing how those work. And you can also watch our videos in the knowledge base. There's a beginner intake forms and there's an advanced intake forms. The beginner one will show you all the menu items and how they work and what they are. And then the advanced one will actually go through a property and show you one functioning as you fill out that intake form. So there's some good resources there. But okay, so that's for a TC to start it. So add property in the property screen or the dashboard, or hit the new button. If it's an agent, so over here in your organization screen, under agents, you can assign agents forms. So if I go into Brian's account here and I go to forms, I can see all the forms that he's assigned to. So here's a buyer intake form, which team user, which team it's going to be sent to. So if you only have one team, no big deal. But if you have multiple teams, you're going to set the team that it's going to. You're going to set the person that needs to be alerted, their brokerage, and the time zone. And then you can also, if you have our Stripe integration working, if you use Stripe for payments, you can charge them up front or on the back end of that as well. And all the agent would do was they would log in. So you would, oops, sorry, got to the wrong screen here. So you would add them as an agent. How you do that is add them right here and make sure that you choose the agent portal user, or else you're going to be charged for team members. So create them as an agent. They will show up over here. They will also get an email. That email is going to give them a username and password that they can log in. And when they log in, they'll be able to see their intake forms in their portal, and they'll be able to choose which ones they want to start. So depending on how you want to do it, those are your two options. Best way to set up forms for the state of Washington. Well, I'm not an expert in all the states. I know that you guys have some messed up date settings. So I believe that if dates are 5 or under days, or maybe under 5, you have business days. And if it's over, they're calendar days. Not a great way to handle that in our program, or any program for that matter. I've checked around because we have a lot of clients from Washington, and I wanted to solve this issue for people. It's just not ideal, to be honest with you. So you really have to spend some time thinking about how you're going to set that up in the system. There may be a little bit of manual input at the beginning. So when you come into the obviously in the intake form, so let me go to the intake form and I'll just show you a basic setup, and then you can definitely watch that beginner and advanced, and that's going to walk you through a little bit more in depth on how you should be setting these up. But let's just go to, let's see, intake forms, and let's go down to this one. I'm not sure what's in it, but make it work. Okay. So again, so this is for the agents, what they see in the forms. Anything in green on this side that the agent's going to see, okay? Anything with red, the agent is required to fill out before they submit the form. So don't put red unless the agent's going to have that information 100% of the time. Over here, these are the fields that the TC is going to see in the transaction. Now, you're only putting the fields in this stage that are going to come into the transaction 100% of the time. The ones that only come in 10%, 20%, even 95% of the time, you're going to do through a trigger. So, and then these are the ones that are required for the TC to fill in before this transaction actually becomes a transaction. So there's the submittal on the intake form, and then there's an approval stage for the TC so that they can go and clean up everything before they actually hit submit and make it a transaction. Couple things I want to point out. I won't go through this whole thing. You can watch the video, but form conditions, these are like a form builder. So these are the things that are happening as the form is being filled out. In this case, if HOA is checked yes, that there's an HOA, we want to go ahead and add in an extra field that's going to pop in dynamically while they're filling out the form. So this could be like a referral. Is there a referral? Yes. And it pops in, what's the percentage and who's the agent? Is there an HOA? Yes. And maybe you want to pop in, what are the fees? Or, you know, here's a contact that you could pop in extra, require them to put in, or require or don't require, but just pop it up and say, hey, if you have the HOA contact information, go ahead and pop that in. Maybe you have an HOA addendum in your state. We do in Arizona. So I would want a copy of that, and you can make that required or not required. And you can put multiple in here. There's just one of each just for demo, but you could put 8 fields pop in or 2 fields pop in. It doesn't really matter. And then down here, you have the ability to say, if they check yes to HOA, make sure to remind my TC that whatever. So you can put a bunch of reminders in here for them. Okay, so that's the conditions. That's while the form is being filled out, additional things are being added to it so that your agent can give you a complete set of information. For those fields we talked about, that like if HOA is yes, then I want my HOA fields to come in. I want my HOA tasks to come in. I want my HOA documents for compliance to come in, all that sort of stuff. You can accomplish that through your conditions here. You can say if HOA is equal to yes, bring in my HOA field section. So those fields will appear. So you're not adding them over here because you don't have an HOA on a property every single time. You only have it on, you know, in my case, probably about 70% of the time. So in that case, if they check yes to HOA, I know my correct fields will come in, and then I would have one for templates, and I would have a document template come in. I would also have a task template come in, a trigger template, whatever other templates you need to come in. And then you could also say, you know, date templates. You could have a date template for your standard state contract. And then you could have maybe a Zillow contract because that's business days. In Arizona, we do calendar days. So if I have a Zillow contract, all my dates have to calculate differently. So I would have 2 or 3 or 4 separate date templates for each type of contract we deal with. And then we would have a question in the intake form. What kind of contract is this? Arizona state contract, or is it a Zillow, or is it an open door, or OfferPad, or whatever? And then that would trigger the right date template to come in and calculate my dates correctly. So hopefully that helps. Definitely watch those 2 videos on intake forms and you'll be enlightened. We'll go through each one of these menu items and then go through an example as well. I don't see any more questions. So while we wait for more questions to come in, I'm just going to go into the date template here and show you guys an example of how these work, because these are really powerful. You shouldn't be calculating your own dates. If you're in Washington, obviously, you may have to calculate a couple manually because it's just kind of a messed up way to do it. Not a lot of states have a change depending on a scenario, which, you know, just doesn't really work well with these. So when you're in here, this is the date that you're calculating. So whatever date or whatever name you type in here, that's the date you're calculating. And then you're going to say how many days, business days, calendar days, skipping weekends, same day as, after or before, and then whatever date you put in there. So this has to be a date field. See that here. And then it's going to take this date field, add 10 days, and then that's going to be my home inspection due. Now, in this past market, I never saw an inspection over 1 day. So, and most of the time it was 0. So what we want to do is we want to have a field that you could fill in that's going to overwrite this 10, because it's not going to be 10 all the time, but maybe 10 is, you know, in a balanced market, 10's 80% of the time. You can create a field. I always put days at the end so that I know this is a days field. And then this is the inspection period length. So if I fill this out and I put 2 in here, it's going to overwrite the 10. It's going to recalculate all my dates, and it's going to update everyone's calendar. If you're using Google, or I believe Microsoft as well does this, and it will update everyone's calendar as well automatically without you doing anything besides typing in 2 into this field. It's going to go through your date template, calculate all the dates, you know, this many days after acceptance, this many days before close, calculate all those, update everyone's calendar if you have it set up to do that. I'll actually show you where to do that while we're talking about it, because I'm not seeing any questions come in. Over in a transaction here, if you go to, what am I looking for? Contacts. And then here, if you open these up, so if you expand all these contacts, right, you're going to see, and you can just expand one at a time by clicking this little down arrow if you want to. If you want more, who is this? Morty. If you want Morty to get all your calendar invites, all your dates that you've set up over in the field editor with a purple checkbox, so that this little calendar would have, it would be purple. It would have a little checkbox next to it if you have the API sync on it. Okay. So let me get out of here real quick. This would have a purple check, and all those dates would automatically be included for this person on their calendar if you set it up that way. If you don't want to, you can not have this checked, and you can invite them individually just by going into it and saying, okay, I just want to invite Bob to this one. And then I can go ahead and update this. And now it's going to send Bob a reminder for that date in particular, not all of the dates. So.
One thing I'll point out there, Andrew, is you will have to push it to the API calendar first, because it has to create the event somewhere. So if you're just trying to say send out an invite to a contact, that won't work. You do have to actually push it to one of your calendars first, because that's where the event's going to live, and then you can send out those invites. And that's why you only need an email address to send the invite, because it's just like if you're creating an event on your Google Calendar, you create it, you send somebody an invite, works very similar.
Cool. Cool.
And then one other thing I just noticed comes up with support. If you're not seeing that calendar icon next to those date fields right here, you just have to go into your field editor and make sure that it's turned on. If you just want to show them real quick, but that, and then even the same thing, since we're there, portal views and those fields. If you want to hide it or show it, you could show them both.
Yep. So here are the fields. The fields that are going to show in the agent portal, client portal, is purple if you want webhooks, and that's available on your plan. You have this button here. You got the introspector to see where this field is throughout the program. If you have that available, that's on the new plans. And then what we're going to show them, sorry, Matthew. Oh, a date. Okay, so down here, you can see that this is checked, add to API calendar. If I uncheck that, it turns back to that gray box. So this one is not going to be synced, but if I want it to be, I just click on it, and now it's purple with the checkbox there. Yeah. What else did you want me to go over? The hide?
Oh, I think you covered, well, the portal view. So one of the things I think came up was somebody had fields hidden or showing on the intake form, and they're like, well, why do they still see it when they go into their portal view? And that would be tied to this section, not the intake form, like you're showing earlier.
Yes.
So just want to clarify the difference between those two. This will hide or show those fields for client portal views, agent portal views. That's where these purple stars come into play.
Yeah, and if you want to hide if you're just not using this field and you just want to hide it, kind of, I guess, permanently, temporarily, permanently until you uncheck this, you can come over here. Oh, not this one, because this is a required field. But if you get to one that you've added manually, you will have a show or hide button here, and you can get rid of that. Now, just be real careful. If you have things checked over in the intake form and you go to delete a field over here that's checked in the intake form, you could have some complications and things like that. So just make sure that you're, before you delete a field, make sure you absolutely want to delete that field and it's not hooked up anywhere else. That's where when you get on the version 2 plan, that's one of the advantages to version 2 is you're going to be able to click on this button and you're going to be able to see in what email templates, what task templates, smart blocks, all these, that this field is located. So you'll have a list of all those that you can go through before you delete a field. And I would always suggest, if you just want to change, like if this is CCNRs and you want to change it to CCNR report or something like that, don't delete this field and add a new one. Just change the name of this, because it will update all of the places throughout the through the program. It's going to update all those automatically with that new name without you having to do anything. If you delete this and add a new one, then you're going to have to go back and connect that new field to all those different locations. So be real careful with deleting fields. Okay.
And the only caveat I would say there is if you choose the wrong field type, like when you're creating, so this probably won't be relevant to all the ones that are already created, but if you're creating a new field and you choose the wrong field type when you're creating that new field and you choose the wrong one, I choose number field, it should be a text field, whatever it might be, you will need to delete that and remake it. That is just one of the caveats there.
Yeah, and it says it right here. This value cannot be changed. So, yeah, but if you're creating one and you don't create it right, then you probably don't have it attached anywhere else. So no big deal. Just delete it and create a new one as quickly as you figure it out. Let's see. Next question says, do you have an example of how the date appears in a Google or Outlook calendar? Yeah, so I don't actually have a physical example I can show you right now, but I can kind of explain it. So let me go into, and you can click here to get in the transaction on the dashboard. You could be in the properties to get there. You could come up here and search for the property, or you could hit history. And if you've clicked on that in the past 25, I think, transactions, it'll be right up top here. So lots of different shortcuts to get to these transactions. Yeah, so anyway, let me go over here. And so these dates here, just know that if you send these dates, and let's pretend that this is purple, but you send these dates and you don't have a time, it's going to create an all-day event. So make sure that if you want it to be a certain time to a certain time, make sure that these are going to be set, or you're not going to be able to have that appear on the calendar from like 8 to 9. You know, it'll always be just an all-day event. Anything you can think of, Matthew, that we need to talk about with dates and like how they appear? They're just a regular calendar invite.
Exactly. I was gonna say it's very simple. If you just go to your calendar, create an event on the calendar, it's that's exactly what it's going to look like, and that's really the functionality it is. It's creating an event on the calendar, whichever one you select, and then sharing out, invites to that event. So
okay, cool. Can I API sync my calendar to a sub calendar? Yeah, you can. So whatever you're hooked up to, that main email on your calendar, then you're going to have the option to choose all of the API calendars underneath there. So you can sync to sub calendars if you need to. Yeah, and that becomes important because like my team has, a buyer critical dates calendar and a seller critical dates calendar and a listing appointment calendar and this calendar and that calendar. And we have probably, 8 to 10 calendars that we work off of to try to keep everything separated, and we can turn them off so it's not so much clutter. So yes, sub calendars are helpful. Does it show the transaction name in the calendar event? I believe so. I think that's all it shows is Matthew, do you know?
yeah, it should. And then if you go to global settings, it's a very small thing, but you could flip the order of it, show the event name or the field name, and then the transaction name, or vice versa.
Yep.
So you can flip that around a little bit.
Here it is. So event title, whatever the name of that field is. So it'll say like inspection date and then the address, or you can change it to the address and then inspection date. I have it on event title first. I think it looks better. I have these all over my calendar. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I get these every day. Okay. I've never been able to send, I have never been able to get my email to send from open to close. I have to copy them and send them directly from my email. Please do not do that. Contact support will get you hooked up. That's too much of a waste of time. It's probably some it's probably some email setting that we just need to get your API hooked up right. Are you using Google? Don, talk to Matthew and see if he can help you.
If you want to submit a ticket, just throw my name in there. They'll forward it directly to me. I could try and take a look, see what's going on. If you have a Google Workspace account, you could use like even a Google alias on there.
Yeah.
Google. Okay. Yeah. So
yep. Just click the purple button down at the bottom corner here, and it opens up a chat window, and you can just say, hey, just talk to Matthew on Workshop Wednesday and trying to get my email hooked up, and maybe send a video of, anything that you can to kind of help us get started with that. So, okay. Text messages go when I send them, but email never really go. Okay. So we'll take care of that, and we'll get you hooked up there, especially if you're on Google. It's should be a super simple process. You're not using @gmail.com, are you? That's one thing that we do not support at Gmail. You would have to have a workspace address with a @something.com other than Gmail. You can also use non-API emails. So if you don't have Microsoft or Gmail, you can use like a Yahoo or a Hotmail or something like that. I would say that it's worth the $6 a month to invest in a Google Workspace account, because you not only get Google Drive sync, you get calendar, updating people's calendars, you get the email. It just functions so much better if you have a Google Workspace, or Microsoft second, but Google Workspace first. Cool. Okay. Let's see. What does the API calendar location field do? API calendar location field. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Okay, API calendar location.
If you open up a date field again, I'm actually a little fuzzy on this. I'd have to talk to Shane. But if you open up a date field in a transaction,
Oh, okay, sure.
it'll be right below where you could choose a like there's the drop down to choose your calendars. There's like one option right below it where you could plug in a API location. I've never seen anybody use it, honestly. Right there, I literally never seen anybody use it. We always use the API calendar drop down because that's where it's directly connected, and you just select which one is appropriate. Yeah, I would need to get a little clarification myself.
I think that came over from TC Workflow, to be honest with you. So yeah, we'll get with the development team. If you could send an email in, you're anonymous on here, so I can't tell who you are, but just send an email in to support@help@opentoclose.com or click this purple button. Send that request in and we'll get you an answer here once we talk to the development team. It'll probably be, we're working on some big projects, so it'll probably be Monday before we get back to you, but we'll let you know. All right, cool. Okay, I've never even noticed that field, to tell you the truth. I'm sure that I was a part of the original development of it, but I cannot remember. That was 2.5 years ago and I've never used it since. Okay, inspection appraisal tasks. These are currently in my standard task list, but most properties require them because most properties require them. Best practice, I feel like it's a lot of steps to take out 2 to 3 for each when I can just delete in it. No, actually, it's not more work. So it's actually less work to have the mini task templates because you're going to automatically trigger those from the intake form. So you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is originally set them up one time. So if you think, like, say you're doing, 2,000 transactions a year and it takes you, I don't know, let's say a minute to do that. Well, that's 2,000 minutes a year. Total that up. That's days of vacation time you could be taking. So yeah, I mean, even if you're doing on a smaller scale, even if you're doing 20 transactions a month or something like that, that's 120 minutes. That's 2 hours of your time that you're just wasting. So what you want to do is set it up one time, take you 30 minutes to go in, make those smaller. And then in your intake form, say, if there's an HOA, put in my HOA task. If there's an inspection, put in my inspection task. If there's an appraisal, put in my appraisal task. And that way you're not, you just want to get into this transaction and see exactly what you need and not any more, not any less. You shouldn't have manual work. As you grow and as you bring on more people, they might not be as experienced as you. They may not know how a transaction perfectly runs at the very beginning. And so you're creating instances where they have to think and figure things out where it should just happen automatically and be correct from the beginning. That's my best practice. That's my thoughts on it. You may have some different thoughts, but I like things just to be the way they should be, no matter if I pop in someone that's been doing this for 2 days or someone that's been doing it for 20 years. All right, we are out of questions. Matthew, anything come up with support this week that we need to cover? I'll try to think of some things here in the meantime.
Yeah, it's been a lot of weird little things. Usually things we could kind of help walk through. One of the obvious confusions could be getting their Google Workspace connected, stuff like that. Google likes to change their settings. We're not experts on their side, so sometimes it takes a little bit of digging through. But honestly, it's hard for us to like show it or highlight it here so much as getting into it with you and your settings. So if you are having any of that trouble, support's are going to be your people. If you want to actually just quickly, since we have a moment, and promote Jana to panelists, just in case she has any feedback she might want to bring in from her experiences in implementation, that might be good as well.
That's what you get for being late, Jana. There you go. All right, cool. We do have another question here in the meantime. It says, how do I sync up my Google Drive to automatically sync the documents? So if you're in a doc, if you do have to set it up at the beginning of the transaction, and you're going to come over to your documents tab, and then there's a Google Drive button here. You click on that, you're going to pick your folder that you want it in, and you can create a new folder. You can pick a folder, you can refresh, all that good stuff. Once you choose it, then you're good to go. And then those will automatically filter over. Now, it's not a two-way sync. If you update something in Google Drive, it is not going to update over in Open to Close because we have folders, we have file roles, we have too much automation going on to just be bringing things into Open to Close without you knowing. And so it is a one-way push that way. And it's just a good way to have a backup of these. Just know that we're backed up many times. We have a lot of duplication on our side. So storing your documents in here is super secure. But some people just like to have that backup for peace of mind, and totally get it. All right. Okay, so creating tasks during the setup, they are all in quotes in a single template. Ideally, they'd be segregated into multiple templates. I don't see how to select a task and move. Yeah, so you can't move one task from one template to another, but what you can do is come over to your tasks and come to your task templates, and under options, you can clone this. So let's say you have a master template. Go ahead and keep that master template. You may never use it again, but it's nice you have it, and you can clone this one, and then you can rename it. And let's name this one inspection tasks demo. We're going to clone this. Should only take a few seconds depending on how big that is. I'm on Zoom, so it'll take me a couple extra seconds. That's here, and then I can come in here, and once it lists these, then I just go down and I would have to delete these. So I'd have to delete and then hit enter, and then delete and hit enter, and just go through them that way. That's probably the easiest way. And then what you're going to want to do is clone that original template, 5 times, or however many segments that you want those down into. And then you can just delete out the ones you don't want, create those. That's probably the easiest, fastest way to do it. All right. Is it possible to schedule an email queued in a trigger pipeline to send at a future date and time? Yeah, so I don't know if you're talking about task templates or if you're talking about, we were just talking about this on the meeting this morning, trying to figure out a way to change our terminology in here to make it a little bit more easy for you guys to convey to us what type of triggers you're talking about. So we have triggers in intake forms with conditions. We have triggers in tasks that you could have conditions in if you're on the most upgraded plan, or some of them probably don't. The task template triggers. And then we also have the property triggers, which are the automated, how do I want to say this, conditional based triggers that happen after the transaction is created. So let's go over each one. So we'll go to task first. And let's just pretend I checked off a task and the emails that were triggered went up to my health bar. So once I check off this task and it had some triggers in there, these emails are going to appear here. And let's say I don't want to send these yet. I can select that. I can say set due, and I can pick a date and time that I want this to send out in the future. So that would be one way to do it. If you're using the property triggers, which are the conditional based triggers after the property transaction takes effect, you have the option to put in here, hey, if these conditions are true, so if buyer exists in property, probably a really horrible condition to have because that's going to set off, pretty quickly. But let's just pretend this is whatever. Then you can say 225 days after contract acceptance at 12:30 a.m. Obviously, this is a horrible time. You wouldn't have 225 days, and you probably wouldn't be sending something to someone at 12:30 a.m. in the morning. But you have that option to go ahead and set it for a certain day and time here. Okay. And then you can always grab these and set due as well. So if you're in your ready to goes, if you are using these property triggers and you're in your ready to go and you're like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I don't want to send these quite yet, I'm going to wait till 8 a.m. You can just go and check those ones, say set due, and then you could say send these out at 8 a.m. so I don't, so people aren't replying to me at 4:30 and 5 and thinking that I work 24 hours a day. So there is that. But I think what you're probably talking about is in tasks, and that original just come up to your health bar and set those to send out later.
And one thing with that as well, just thinking strategy, if you have a lot of merge fields, smart blocks being in that, you may want to get eyes on those emails before they go out. So, schedule and send for really straightforward emails, really great. Just keep in mind the ones that you really want to inspect beforehand on that. So inspect before you schedule.
Yeah, and I think this is I think I did this the other day and I didn't have real good examples in here. Let me come down to the bottom ones. Maybe they have better ones. When you're inspecting this, yeah, this is a good one. It's going to tell you who it's going to. It's going to tell you how it built the email. So you can come back here to your template and see your smart blocks. Like I had a smart block here. Whoops, didn't mean to close that, sorry. When you inspect this, you can go over to the template and look at what it should have looked like, and then you can look at what it actually came out to be. You don't really need to do that though, because this is going to tell you what didn't come in. This smart block, accepted offer transaction summary, didn't come in. Why didn't it come in? I don't know. I don't know what the condition is on this. So what I may want to do at this point is say Control S and Control S is going to pop open my smart blocks. I can go to accepted offer. Oh, whoops. I am in a category. Make sure that you have all turned on if you're going to be searching. Oops. And then let's go ahead and say accepted offer transaction summary. And this is which one, the seller or buyer? This is the seller. Okay. So I can see that there's one condition on here. I can open this up and I can see that it's going to paste in. Well, I have nothing in here right now, but you would normally have a message block in there. Oh, there it is. So, and then it is if client contact type is equal to seller. And so I know that if this is a buyer transaction, that's good that this didn't come in. You shouldn't have that in your templates anyway, but just in this weird case, this came in to alert me that that's not in there. Now, these two are more critical. Smart blocks, of course, like some smart blocks aren't going to come in. That's probably right. But listing agent full name, right in here, there's probably, here it is. So it's not going to come in. It says, I'm the transaction coordinator for blank. So this is something you would want to take care of. You want to go to your contacts, fill that in. Contract date, also not in here. It was supposed to be right here at the beginning. So you want to come down here and say, sorry, there's a bunch of documents in here, but edit fields. And then I would go to my contract date. And I don't know if it's still in here, if I've deleted it since. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't have contract date in there anymore. But anyway, if it was in here, let's just say it's this one, you would click on it, you would update it, and then you would hit the little checkbox, you would close it, and then this would update. And so then you could go ahead and send it once you felt comfortable. Or if you wanted to put an extra line, say it's their birthday, say it's something out of the ordinary, you can hit edit. It's going to open up. Now you are going to render this right now. So make sure you're going to send it if you're going to render it. Because updates aren't going to happen. If you change a field, that won't update in here after you render it. But this is going to render the email where I can come in here now and say, okay, one off, I just have to say, happy birthday, or whatever. So birthday. And now I can go ahead and send this from here. So, okay, what else we got here? So I believe we can sync to either Dotloop, Skyslope, but not both. With that being said, if I start an OTC, can I then send all to Skyslope? Yeah, so you can connect both, but you just can't connect to both at the same time. So it's a little bit more of a process, and it's just the limitations of the API, what we had to work with there. But so I always suggest using the intake form instead of importing a Dotloop, importing a Skyslope, or importing a brokerment file. I always say, use the intake form. That's good, Don. I just want to go over this for everyone else that may be not as familiar. So the intake form is going to be able to trigger the fields, trigger the tasks, trigger the documents, trigger everything to be right. Whereas if you bring in a Dotloop or a Skyslope, you're not going to have that trigger functionality. You're not going to have that dynamic form that you're using. So it's always better to use the form if you can. And then what we want to do is go into the transaction and go into more. And then go into Dotloop, and then I like to link it. So if you want to export it and you want to export all this information over from open to close to Skyslope, to Dotloop, wherever, you can. You do need to set up an API profile, which I'm going to show you next. But you can choose the Dotloop profile because you may have 50 agents in here if you're an independent TC. So you select the profile you want, and then you can just push everything open to or create a new loop over there. If you want to just deal with an existing one, which we do most of the time, Skyslope wise, we would just search and link the property. And now under like documents, you're going to have another option here, and you're going to have add to Skyslope would be here, or add to Dotloop. And then over in the contacts, you'll also have that same option where if you're over here, it would be right here at the bottom. It would say add to Skyslope, add to Dotloop. So you could click that, it pulls up a Modo window, and then you can fill in more information if you want, and then send that over. So I like the link, but you can export as well, especially with Skyslope. If your brokerages is requiring you to create a new transaction over there, then a lot of the times people would just create it from the intake form here and then export all that information over. Now, the caveat that I talked about, you do need a API field mapping because the fields may be named differently over in Skyslope than they are in open to close. So what you have to do is come to API field mapping. You're going to say add new. Add new is going to give you the option for Dotloop, Skyslope, Brokerman, or Follow Up Boss. Okay. And then you name the template. So once you're done with that, we're just going to come over to this one and we'll say edit. And then we're going to match the fields. So it's going to bring in all the fields from Skyslope. Here are all the fields from Skyslope. And now I need to go and tell them what field in open to close matches up with what field in Skyslope. So you can see this is MLS number. Over here, it's just MLS. These two are the same. This one was escrow closing date. We just have it as closing. So then you go through, create one of those so that when you're back over there, I don't know if you noticed that button that was in my transaction, but if I go to more and Skyslope, you can see this add a profile. So you're adding this API profile so that it knows which fields to match up. So super helpful. Okay, I was going to integrate with Zapier so I could set up some automatic options as discussed in previous webinars. When I reached out to Zapier, they said there isn't an integration. I was sure I saw it on the integrations list for OTC. Yeah, so we deal directly with APIs. We don't have a little widget on Zapier, but that doesn't mean you can't use Zapier. If you're using Zapier, I would reach out to one of our vendors. If you're not familiar with, if you're not really good with it, then I would reach out to, and I would say really good with using an API, not just using Zapier. Then I would reach out to maybe Bara Agency. It's BARA agency.com, and or maybe Osiris may be able to help you. osirs.co. Those two deal with a lot of Zapier type integrations, and they could hook you up. But yeah, you're dealing directly with webhooks and you're dealing directly with the API instead of dealing with like a pre-configured widget in Zapier. It's something we may do in the future, but honestly, we have a lot of flexibility using the API. So I would find someone that knows how to work those and have them hook it up for you.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, if you're primarily looking at utilizing our webhooks feature within Open to Close, not necessarily just the APIs, feel free to email us at setup@opentoclose.com. We do have some information that we can walk through for just the webhook side of things, but we'll send over in the chat the link for both of those partners that Andrew was mentioning. Anonymous attendee, I can never pronounce that word. But yeah, just wanted to piggyback on the webhook side particularly.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so yeah, and that goes with anything, any program you want to hook up. We have an open API, so if they have an open API, you're probably going to be able to do most of what you want to do. We're still adding webhooks, we're still adding API endpoints, so there is some stuff that you can't do right now. But you know, if enough people say they need something, like you know, when a task is complete, I think we just added that one recently, Jana, I'm not sure, but that was one that came up quite a bit from users. They said, man, if a task is complete, I want to zap that task over to wherever, my CRM or whatever. So I believe we added that one. So yeah.
Yeah, it should be coming here with the new release.
Oh, okay, cool. Is it possible? Oh, and just to mention, webhooks are on the premium plan add-on, which will soon be our pro plan. So if you don't see webhooks and you're on the base plan, that's why. You do have access to some of the API, but you don't have access to the webhooks. That is a advanced feature. Is it possible to upload multiple documents at a time into the Skyslope file from open to close, or can we only upload documents individually? That is a good question that I cannot remember off the top of my head. Let me look here real quick. I believe you have to do them individually. Let me see if there's a multiple option here.
Yeah, I think it was individual too. I was taking a look while you were talking.
Okay, yeah, I think it's individual. And I'm not sure about the export. So we don't have like an account with Skyslope to be able to test some of this stuff. So like we build it and then they don't give us like an ongoing dev account like most people do. So a lot of the stuff that comes up, we don't have a way to test it unless we get into your account to do it. But yeah, on the export, you may be able to grab a bunch of them at one time to create the file over there and then just have the one-off ones going as they come in. And just so you know, Skyslope, there is a limitation because of their API that when you do send those over, you can't put them into a placeholder. So if it says like purchase contract and you got to put it there, you have to send it to the Docs tab first and then go to the Docs tab and select where it needs to go in the placeholder. For some reason, they don't give us like a way to do that. We're hoping in the future they do so that we can directly put them into the placeholder, but it's just one extra step that they're going to make you do because they just don't have the correct stuff built on their API. Okay. This is what I'm hoping for. We start in .loop, then create the OTC file with the intake form, then send to Skyslope. Okay, so when you say create OTC file, or I'm sorry, when you say start in .loop, I'm assuming you're talking about the buyer agents or listing agents signing their documents with the clients and getting that either as an exclusive right to sell listing or a under contract for the buyer. Is that what you mean by starting in .loop? If so, I'm just going to kind of continue on with that. Start in .loop and then create the file with the intake form. That's good because then you can have all the triggers to create your transaction the way it should be, and then send to Skyslope. So all you would do is come in and link this or export it and then link it to Skyslope. So yeah, that's a great way to do it. Honestly, that's a great way. And you can, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think I followed up on this. You can disconnect and then connect another one, and then disconnect that and connect another one. So it's a little cumbersome, but if you did need to do something in .loop and Skyslope, you could disconnect, connect, disconnect, and connect again. All right. Any plans to connect Dropbox? Also, we are considering using Microsoft OneDrive, SharePoint for our cloud storage. If we move to that, is there an integration? No OneDrive, no SharePoint. Dropbox we had in TC Workflow, they ended up changing their entire API on us. And so now we would have to rewrite that whole thing. There's just not enough people using it right now to justify the time and effort to put into it versus doing other things. If we get enough people that want Dropbox and vote it up in the Idea Lab, then I would say it'll definitely be on the roadmap. But for right now, it's not on this roadmap for the next, well, let's see, when's this quarter? This quarter is over in 2 days. So it's not on this one and it's not on the next one up until the end of December. We don't plan out further than the current quarter and the next quarter. So we don't know what's going to be January on yet. We base that off of your recommendations, what we're seeing in the program, a bunch of different things. I know mobile will probably be next year at some point. We do want to get that on the roadmap at some to rebuild the whole mobile so that you guys have a little bit more functionality. So agents can check off tasks, the clients can check off tasks, things like that in the portals and also in the app. So that's one thing. Yeah, go ahead, Jenna.
To piggyback a possible workaround, if Dropbox has a property email type of address, you could try and utilize that to automatically send over your documents through email when you send them out via email. So similar to how we have a property email, I believe Dropbox also has one, Skyslope also has one. So you can easily send documents to that system and then assign it to the appropriate folder placeholder.
And if you're on our scale plan, you could set up a trigger in this right here to say, if this document exists, send an email with that document attached to this email. So what you would have to do at the beginning of the transaction is create a contact called Dropbox with that address in it. And then you would have your template set up to send to Dropbox every time a new document came in. Now you would have to come over here and it would have an email and you could just hit send, 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 send. So it would take, extra 3-4 seconds, but you would get them in there. The other way to do it would be to get a Drive account, put them in Drive, and then use like a if this then that, like IFTTT program, or one of those Zapier or something like that, where you could say anytime something new goes into Google Drive, send it over to Dropbox. So obviously it would be double and you'd have to have both, which you may not want to do, but there are other ways to do it. If you have a place to store it, there may be a Zapier integration where you can zap that over to Dropbox from wherever you're storing that at. Last time I created a new Skyslope file from open to close, it created the first page of the Skyslope file, but stopped at the contacts page, which is required to complete in order to move forward in Skyslope. So I ended up adding contacts twice. Let's see here, commissions. Let's see here, FYI, there's a Loom video. Okay, so as long as you send a Loom video, they're probably digging through it on support. We have one person that really knows the integrations really well. So there is a little bit of a roadblock there as far as getting back to people on Skyslope, Dotloop, and Dropbox integrations, just because it is so technical and it's using the API that a lot of the times just our tier 1 support just can't, there's just nothing we can do to help solve it. So we have to push it over and we have to kind of put it in a queue to wait. So you may have some little bit of extended times on those. So I apologize on that, but that's just, you know, obviously we're going to train some people up and get more experts on that so that we can get a little bit faster response times on these integrations as we add more to the system. So, but yeah, as long as you have a Loom video into support, it will get taken care of. You will get a response. It just may take a little bit more time if it's Brokerment, Dotloop, Dropbox, or oh, they made you, okay, they made me a Loom video that I haven't had time to watch yet. You guys are super timely and awesome. Awesome. Okay, I must have misread that. So yeah, but anyone that's listening, if you guys have issues, a video, you will get a response back so much quicker if you have a video included describing your thought process behind what's happening versus just writing in and saying, my documents don't work. Well, we are not mind readers and we are not detectives. And a lot of the times, you know, those we'll have to go back and forth with you several times. If you just send a video with your thoughts and you can kind of talk through it so we understand where you're coming from, what page you're on, what you're clicking on, all that stuff is like, it's like writing a book to us about what's happening because we can solve those so much quicker. And we can send snippets of that video to the development team so that they can actually jump in there too and take care of that stuff and get a fix for it so much faster than if you're just sending it words. So just keep that in mind. I know it's an extra step and it's kind of a pain, but if you download Loom, there's a Loom little icon you can put on Chrome, Edge, Safari, anywhere. You can put these little icons on here and you can click on it and hit record in like 2 seconds. And they give you free up to 5 minutes forever. So as long as you start an account now, you'll have free 5-minute videos. There's a bunch of programs out there that do it. I use Nimbus a lot, NIM, what is it? NIMBUS. And then there's also one called Monosnap, MONOSNAP. And that one has video recording and screenshots. This one does a really cool job of, let me just show you Nimbus because it's just so cool. We don't have any more questions. You can select like, I want to grab a fragment of the screen, or I want to grab the visible part of the screen, or I want to select the whole screen. It'll actually scroll down for you and get the entire page, or just a selected area. The cool thing about this is you can grab a piece, you can hit edit, and then it makes it really easy to come over here and say, hey, this is the part that I'm looking at. I want to do an arrow to that. I want to put some text in here. Blah, 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 blah. And then you can say done, and it's going to give you a bunch of different options to save it as an image that you could put in an email. You could save it as a PDF. You could, you know, there's a million different things you could do. So that one's really helpful. And then there's also record a video in here. I prefer Loom for videos just because they transcribe and you can edit and there's a bunch of different things you can do. But for quick stuff, Nimbus and Monosnap are impeccable for what they do. Super quick. It doesn't add a lot of time to your day to point this stuff out. You know, the other thing that comes up a lot is how do I train my people? Well, as you're going through something, being able to have that Loom video, click on it quickly, and then just go through and talk through how you're doing something, and then put a title on it for your SOPs in the future. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Everyone gets so hung up that my SOP book has to be like, well, SOP book, I'm talking like it's 1980. We used to have a written procedure book, but now you can do everything through video, and you can have a catalog where you can search for it. Using a program, using any program now, even Google Drive now, you could do that, or trying to think of the other one that I use quite a bit. Anyway, now you can quickly record these videos as you're going through the day without adding extra time. And now you don't have to answer those little onesie-twosie questions as you develop a team. You can also put links like, let's say your task, how to do a task. You could come over here and in your, come on, Zoom, you can do it. There you go. In your internal details, you could come in here and say, man, Zoom is just really slow lately. Okay, so this is how you do this. And then if you put a video link here, let's just say that's the video link. And then you could come down here and say, and then do this, and then do this, and this, and this. Well, if they come up here and they're like, okay, I want to watch this video, they just triple click here, right click. And then if you're actually in it, you should, I don't think I have mine set up right, but you should have a menu that pops up that says, and why can't I get it here? Anyway, it should say open in new tab, and it would just open up that video in the new tab. So I'm not sure why this one's not working, but my other one.
Try clicking that link button, because I think you could take text and link it to the actual video. So like
Oh,
that
that's the
text can say
problem.
whatever you want, and then you can throw in the,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Gotcha. You could say click here or something
Yeah.
like that. And then that's how I must have mine set up. So like that, and then the title will be open to close, save that. That's fine. And so now if I right click on that, you can say open link, and that's going to open in a new tab, and it's going to open up to your video. You could have a private YouTube channel. You could have a Vimeo channel, any one of those places that you could go, or you could just have it linked back to Google Drive or something like that. So a lot of different ways to use this stuff and really quickly make an SOP for your team that they can follow time and time again without having to come to you on every little thing. And I'm going to stress this again. I know I already said it, but it does not have to be perfect. If you make a mistake during the video, keep going. It does not matter. Your people do not care. They just want to know how to do it. Don't spend a lot of time on these things. You can always go back and perfect them when you have more time, but just make them short and sweet and to the point. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off that real quick. So I was actually the one helping Megan. So I think that video is gonna help answer a few questions. I still might need maybe like a full process, like steps of the import process from, I think it was Dotloop. I do need some development feedback on that side. So that will be helpful. One thing I like using videos when I'm explaining things to the clients as well, just because those visuals really do go a long way, both ways, for me to be able to see what you guys are looking at, and vice versa. I'm going to want to show you something. You're going to understand it so much better if I'm showing you versus I'm just trying to type out a paragraph. Trust me, Andrew could testify. I could give you paragraphs, but it's so much easier for you if I just give you a video. And there's just so many little details that you can find along the way that just make light bulbs click. So
Matthew likes to send me 5 paragraph emails, and he knows I'm not going to read them.
I'm an English major. What can I say?
So support center is here. You can click on this one. That sends you to all our videos. So just type in the name of what you're looking for. You can also search for it down here in this box. You can search articles here. So lots of different places you can go. The idea lab is here, which I mentioned earlier, to put your ideas in. We'll vote those up. Keyboard shortcuts are in here. There's a bunch of different stuff in here that you can look at as well. Okay, another question. Specific to the way that you have your document, doc options, tabs, MS, MI, do you replace the docs that you've uploaded that are missing something with FE once you have it? Yeah, so what they're referring to here is how I have my documents. And honestly, we've changed our buttons. This is the demo account, but you can create these buttons any way you want. So you got file buttons here, buyer sign, seller sign. I don't really use these anymore. I use my file roles actually have the BS, SS, and FE on them. So let me close this. So you can see that I have addendum FE, I have an addendum SS, I have an addendum BS. So now I don't check these boxes. These boxes don't even exist anymore. Missing signature, I may put this in red while we're acquiring the signature that we, someone forgot. So page 5 didn't have a signature at the bottom. I may make that, whoops, sorry, red is the first one. I may make that red until we get that back. I may put a note on it, who's handling it. So you can toggle the notes and leave them open. You can put the notes on there. Missing, this is a good one to do in your templates. So in your document templates, you do the missing, and then it will have the number up here of how many are missing. And then you can uncheck these as you go. Once I upload it, I can uncheck that missing. And now that 7 is going to go to a 6. Sorry, Zoom is taking forever today, but it goes to a 6. And so you can create ones like, I just want to go one more thing, and then I'll let you jump in here. One of the things that I think is really helpful for if you're using Command, if you're using Skyslope, if you're using all these systems to upload, you can create buttons for uploaded to Skyslope, approved in Skyslope, whatever those are, so that you don't have to constantly go back over to Skyslope or Dotloop or wherever to look at these things. So sorry, Jana, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, those are my absolute favorite file buttons to recommend for users. Just so you can see if you're still waiting on it to be approved. You don't have to constantly go check that system if you know you've already gone through it and done that piece of it. So
yep,
you catch it. Thanks.
Yep, and the file roles having this BS, SS, FE on the end, AS for agent sign, LS for lender sign. Like I went through all my documents and I found out like, hey, this document has a place for the lender to sign, the agent to sign, and fully executed. So I would go in and create for whatever document that is, an LS, an AS, and a FE. And so why I do that is because of the automation, because I don't want the buyer signed version to automatically attach to an email. I want the fully executed version. So if the buyer signed exists, I don't care. I only want the fully executed to attach to that email template that I have. So you can automatically attach things to emails. The other thing is, once you get into the higher automation, the trigger button here, you can say, like I mentioned earlier, if this file exists, attach it to this email and send it out. And so I could have, anytime I receive the earnest money, I want to automatically attach it to an email, write a nice little blurb in my template to send over to the buyer. Here's your earnest money. Here's your next steps, whatever that is. And then automatically trigger this up to the health bar where I can go and send this off. Okay, so it's going to automatically trigger that email, attach the document, send it up here. And then once I go in here, I'll have it listed and I can hit send, or I can inspect it and then send, depending on the email and how many smart blocks and merge fields and things you want to check. So yeah, those going back to the file buttons though, I mean, they're super helpful. You'll have things in your business that you can think of that you just want like a quick visual on. Use them. And we just did it like Skyslope. Honestly, we just stole their colors in case people were using Skyslope. We got red, we got green, we got purple, and we got gray. So that gives you enough that you guys can come up with some. These are more for like, figure it out yourself. You know, if you guys need more options on how to classify things, you can always use those colors. You can always use these colors. We don't mandate what red means, but we have like 16 colors or something in here that you have to choose from, and you can come up with your own team's meaning for those colors. So that's why they're there.
One other thing under the file buttons tool, actually manage file buttons. Don't forget to preset your colors for when you toggle your fully executed button on or off. That is also really helpful just to save you guys some time.
And turn missing label gray. So after you get the executed one, if you want to turn the missing label off, that can happen automatically here too by checking this box, which is super handy. So you don't have to do it every single. So like this one here, let's just check this one missing. And okay, here we go. So I'm going to turn this on. And what it's going to do is it's going to turn off the missing and then make all these green. And these may be like approved in Skyslope, approved in Dotloop, whatever. And you can create them however you want. So over here in the file buttons, you can say, I want this to turn gray. So like missing initials and missing signature, I want those to be gray. And this may be approved in Skyslope, approved in Dotloop, approved in Brokerment. Maybe I just turn them all green just because to make it easy. And then if you turn it off, it can turn the missing label red and turn all these red if you wanted to. These don't make sense to turn red, but you get the idea. You'll have all custom ones in here. You could even have them with people on your team. You could have like, Andrew did this or Jana did this or Matthew did this. You could use them for that. So we left them pretty wide open so that you guys could kind of design your system how you want to design it. Okay, I got one more question and we are running up on 12 o'clock. So what 12 o'clock Pacific that is? What do the numbers reference in your tasks? Oh, yeah, those were just for something was happening in the system. We had a bug. And so I needed to know that all my tasks were coming in and I knew there were 82 of them. And sometimes I had dates on them and I didn't want to have to go back and change all my dates because they came in kind of wonky. So this would enable me to say, okay, where's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Okay, I got all those. So nothing you have to do. Yeah, I would totally ignore those. Those were for testing purposes only. Cool. Well, it is 11:59 my time. We are going to go ahead and end this. I appreciate everyone being on here. Definitely appreciate all the questions. Makes these things go so smooth. Same time, same place next week. Feel free to come every week. It's open Q&A. Anything you want to talk about, we are open. Anything that's happening in the system, we're open. If you're having problems though, don't wait until Wednesday. Shoot a video and send it to support and let us get on that. But these are especially helpful for strategy. We can go over a lot of strategy here and help with some support things. But honestly, support's better for support. They do that every day. We're better for setting up which direction am I going to go? Am I going to go left or right here? Am I going to create small templates or am I going to create big templates? Things like that, we can really get you to the next level in the system. So again, appreciate your time today. Same time, same place next week. Hope to see you there. We'll talk soon. Thanks.